Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Glory Glory Man United podcast. And what a glorious Friday evening this is after Manchester United won 3-0 away in Bilbao, exceeding all our expectations. What a victory, Chris.
Unbelievable, Kyle. Unbelievable. Very, very good. And I feel like the last time I was on the podcast, I can't even remember who the game was, but I think it was another victory. So I'm turning out to be a wee bit of a good luck charm here, Kyle, and I'll take that all day long. Yep, all good, all good.
You're going to have to come on every week now, Chris.
Well, Kyle, I think I may have to. I may have to.
Yeah, so United have one foot in the final after winning 3-0 against Bilbao, and there's so much to chew over. Um, Probably one of United's best away victories in Europe. And I know it's only Europa League, but this is the fourth best team in Spain, just behind the big three, and they're the best defensive record in La Liga. In their previous six home games in the Europa League this season, they've only conceded two goals, and they conceded three in the first half to United. And it could have been more. Mizrahi hitting the crossbar, nearly 4-0 before half time. Obviously, Casemiro hit the post with a header, and Garnacho had a goal ruled out for offside. But let's get into the. We'll start with the first goal, which was from Casemiro. Lovely bit of wing play from Harry Maguire. Who would have believed it? We've seen just about everything from Harry Maguire now. We've seen him defensively being good, been good as a centre forward, and now been good as a winger. Beating his man not once but twice, delivering a delicious cross in for Ugarte to flick on and Casemiro to nod in at the back post. Uh,
And just double check who you said there. Did you say Harry Maguire there, Kyle? Can I just check I heard that right?
yeah, that's Lionel Maguire or Harry Yamal, as people are now calling him. I've seen some memes of him being in recent weeks, people superimposing his face onto Brazilian Ronaldo, and then I think it was Amad Diallo himself who posted a story on Instagram earlier of Harry Maguire's face superimposed onto Diego Maradona.
Oh, you gotta love it. You absolutely have to love it. Like, incredible, incredible. Do you know what? Fair play to Harry Maguire. Like, he has been the most maligned man in the recent years at Manchester United, as we all know, as I have done plenty of, you've done plenty of. Fans have given plenty of abuse over the years, but you have to give it to the guy. Like, he has absolutely stood up and just got himself back on track, and yeah, and exceeded even what people would have expected from him on a good day. So I mean, yeah, fair play to him. Fair play to him.
Yeah, and another man who has completely turned it around is Casemiro. This is We're still in the same season where he was humiliated by being substituted at half time against Liverpool. Um, he had a woeful game against Newcastle at Old Trafford and didn't play again for a month, and everybody was saying that he was done. But due to an injury to Ugarte, he then was selected in the Real Sociedad game out of necessity. And in all five Europa League games since then, he has been excellent. And he's actually so important to us in this competition that you just need to rest him in all the Premier League games and save him for the Europa League because
Yeah.
he has been a key man for us. Now, he got three assists for the three late goals against Lyon. He scored last night and he hit the post last night as well. So, unbelievable turnaround from Casemiro.
You have to hand it to him. Absolutely, 100%, Kyle. I mean, that's the thing about Casemiro. We always knew he's got lots and lots of quality, lots of experience. Obviously playing for Real Madrid in the Champions League, massive competitions, won the whole lot. So, the guy certainly got all the experience and that for him to do well in the likes of these competitions. But you're right, it looked like his form was awful. He was literally humiliated earlier in the season. Everybody just thought, he's just biding his time now until he kind of goes, or until he's completely surplus to requirements. But similar in a way to Harry Maguire, he's just come back and went, nope, I'm not done yet. I'm going to show my class and what I'm all about. And yeah, he's that's what he's doing. And yeah, I think you're right, Kyle. It's pretty obvious that at the age that he's at now, that he's on the legs to be playing lots and lots of games. But I mean, as we know, and every fan I'm sure will agree, the Europa League, for obvious reasons, is now our most important competition. It's technically it's the only competition really that we're in. when you think about it. So yeah, I think that's the priority, got to be the priority, and I think resting him in the league games because they mean nothing really now anyway. And keeping for the for Europa League is the way to go for sure.
Yeah, he's certainly, I think, going to be rested against Brentford. And I understand why he started against Bournemouth, because there's a 2 week break between Europa League matches, and you don't want to leave him, a bit rusty. You want to give him some minutes in certain Premier League games, but uh, in between legs, you definitely don't play him. And I actually think that there'll be an entirely rotated 11 probably against Brentford this weekend. We'll see. I think it'll be at least 10 changes in that match. And he'll certainly be one of the players who won't be starting the match. And Mizrahi won't be starting either. Actually, it'll be the first league game that he will miss this season. And the manager confirmed that he's now running on empty. The tank is empty and he needs rest. So he won't be playing in this game. And I think that's the right decision. And it's a real opportunity then give Harry Amos another start because he's impressed in the minutes that he's got in recent games. So last night Ugarte had a very shaky start, being very sloppy in the middle of the park, which is what you don't want when you're playing in that raucous atmosphere and you're up against it. You don't want to be giving away cheap possession. But he turned it around. He ended up getting 2 assists, one with the flick on for Casemiro, and then the back heel to Fernandez for the third goal. So fair play to him. He has his critics, Ugarte, but certainly he proved them wrong last night again.
Yeah, yeah, Ugarte. Being honest, he hasn't hugely impressed me so far. I don't. I mean, he hasn't stood out, I guess, but he hasn't stood out for being kind of awful either. But he hasn't been particularly outstanding in my mind since he's joined. But you're right, Kyle. He played well last night. And he kind of showed, he was bought because it looked like he had a lot of quality. And maybe, we're all very, give people time, I guess, in our minds these days so much, but, maybe he's just taking time to sort of settle into England and that kind of stuff. But yeah, he definitely did well last night. So more like that, please. I mean, he's got the right attributes. Seems like he has the right attributes. So it's nice to see him sort of actually hitting a wee bit of form, and maybe just maybe it's coming at the right time. Who knows if he can keep it up for the rest of the games, hopefully, which end up being us in the final of the Europa League. So with any luck, he'll be hitting the form and he'll be playing well just whenever we need him to.
Well, he scored against Leon and he got 2 assists last night. And of course, he scored that wonderful goal against Everton. But he's actually not paid to do that. That's what people need to remember. He was actually brought in to be like a Makaleli type player for United. Like he is known for not having no creative abilities on the ball. He's a ball winner, and people need to calm down and temper their expectations because he's very much a defensively minded player. When he gets goals or assists, that's a bonus. You shouldn't be expecting that from him every week.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah, I think even for me, he hasn't even really stood out as the wonderful ball winner that we thought he was going to be. I just don't feel like he's been somebody who you're watching, you're going, oh, thank God Ugarte was there. Oh, what a tackle! But you know what I mean? Which is I sort of thought like Makelele would have done, or Fernandinho was doing for Man City. You thought you'd have been wanting to be saying, oh, thank thank God we had Ugarte there. He was just again just the right place, the right time. And I don't feel like that when I watch him. Sometimes I'm going, oh, that was yeah, I suppose that was a good one. You just don't feel like he's sticking out. But you're right, Kyle. If people are expecting him to be scoring goals and being some sort of a box to box midfielder or something, I mean yeah, that's not his game. That's not going to be his game. So there's no point in expecting that from him. But I just think maybe he's just taking time to settle. Like you say, he's strong, all that kind of stuff. His tackling ability was renowned. So, but I wouldn't say I've seen those levels of, from him just yet. But I mean, it's early, very early days. I'm sure he can only improve.
There might have been an element of nervousness last night as well. Dorgu was another example of that. It just started the game very poorly, as did Ugarte, but Ugarte certainly grew into the game, which is pleasing. It's great that he showed uh, a good mentality there, because if you have a bad start to a game in that kind of atmosphere and like a raucous crowd, it's like a cauldron. Most of the crowd are against you. They're baying for blood. and you give the ball away a few times at the start of the match, you could easily crumble. But for him to come back and end up playing an important role in United winning the game, that's commendable and that's good quality to have.
100%, 100% agree. And again, it's another example, Kyle, of showing a bit of character. And that is the thing that gets talked about a lot about this Manchester United team is that they don't have enough, for want of a better word, character. To me, that word gets thrown around a lot, and it's nice for TV. But in a way, what I think of it is kind of guts, determination. You know what I mean? To me, it's somebody saying, "I'm not willing to just be a passenger in us losing this game," or if we need a result here, and I'm gonna go and try and get us that result single handedly. And if every single player has that attitude, you will win games because there's quality in the team. And I think that can be the difference. And we've complained a lot, and we see it the pundits all the time talk about this team doesn't have that character. Well, Bruno Fernandes has shown character. Again, he gets criticised, but you can't say he's not determined. Talking there about Ugarte, and you're right, Kyle. Showing that not letting something like a setback kind of get to him in the game and being able to adjust his mindset. And then the same about Casemiro and Maguire. Saying once again, Casemiro humiliated, Maguire humiliated as well, really in many ways. And those two guys showing that actually they're not just gonna let that kind of burn them out or let that be how they're defined. So I think it's good to see that, and I think you're right to highlight that as a thing, given that we talk so much about their lack of character. That actually there's examples of three or four guys in the team who are actually showing character. And once again, like I was saying earlier, we need to go and win the Europa League. That's what we need to do. It's the only chance of saving the season. Some people say that wouldn't even save it. Fair enough, but it's the only real positive that we could take. And you do need strong characters to go and win cups like that. And again, I'm glad to see those guys showing a wee bit of that now, and you hope that filters through the rest of the team, and we can actually have a bit of positivity and go on and try and actually win the thing.
Yeah, our most experienced players were probably the most important players last night, and that's great to see that they managed to use all that experience they have in order to, win us the game and play a key role in getting those goals. Even Maguire, who's a defender, did he defend well, his distribution was excellent, and that I'm still in disbelief at that silky skills that he was showing out on the right wing and then providing that cross. It's like everybody was going on about Yamal the night before. If Yamal had did what Maguire did, that would be making the highlights reel as well. It's just insane that there's nothing Harry Maguire can't do right now. He's just his confidence is sky high. Remember we used to talk about his confidence being really low. Now
Yeah,
it's sky high and the sky's the limit for him. And you know when he's played as a striker for United, I've said this and I'm not even joking that he looked like United's best striker. He's such a handful in the box. Almost remind me of Fellaini. Remember when Mourinho and Van Gaal used to throw him up front,
mhm,
and Amram's been doing that with Maguire, and he just immediately looks dangerous
yeah,
and is creating goal opportunities or getting goals as he did against Leon. So
yeah.
yeah, but the wing play that was just so unexpected. I just cannot believe what I was seeing there from Harry Maguire.
No, I mean, you have to give it to him. I think I don't know if I ever said it on the podcast, but well, we've talked about it, Kyle, and we've mentioned it. Not going to say that I called it in any way, not remotely saying that I was one of Harry Maguire's biggest critics for sure. But one thing I did say, I think to you before, maybe offline, was I do remember a couple of videos that Harry Maguire put up during lockdown, during COVID, when he was sort of training in his back garden because the guys couldn't meet up and train, and he was just bouncing a ball, and sort of going left foot, right foot off like a wee sort of a not a net, like a wee trampoline thing. And I remember at the time, this was long before everything kind of went kind of bad in a way for Maguire. I was thinking, the guy's got pretty decent feet for a big man who you think is pretty slow, and I said he's got pretty decent feet. But again, not saying that I called it or remotely anything like that. But it is interesting, you do see that the guy has got skill. Yeah, he doesn't look the quickest and or the most agile, and that's maybe one thing that we've criticized him for a lot. He can't get back quick enough and this kind of thing. But it shows you he's got ability. He's a good footballer. There's no two ways about that. I mean, you don't get that level unless you are, but it's nice to see him showing that.
I would say that most defenders in the Premier League would be strikers in League Two. Uh,
100%. Totally agree. Absolutely, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and he certainly fits that bill. You just see when he goes up front, I get excited. And that's quite a compliment. You know,
Well, and given you're talking about Harry Maguire, that couldn't be a bigger compliment.
yeah, that's where we are at the moment with
Outstanding, outstanding.
uh,
And funny enough, just before I know we move on, Kyle, just while we're still talking about Maguire, I watched his interview just before we logged on there. I saw his interview from last night, and I'm talking about saying I think the interviewer had asked him whether when the Europa League would save the season, and he said, "Well, I wouldn't go that far to say that it would save the season, but we're here to make memories, for ourselves and for the fans, and that would that's what the fans deserve, and that kind of thing." And it just struck me just in that moment for a second that you know he's saying all the right things. He's talking about giving the fans what they want, the same fans who often have absolutely torn to shreds. It just shows the character of the guy. That he knows what the job is. He knows what they have to do. And he's certainly not letting the past affect him in any way. So I mean, I just thought again, it just shows a good mindset there.
I don't think there's too many footballers who would have been able to come back from what he's had to deal with, the way he was being absolutely lampooned online and in football stadiums, just seen as a figure of fun. Um, you know, Scotland fans cheering him onto the pitch when
Yeah,
he came on for England, Arsenal fans cheering him on at the Emirates when he was coming on for United. In pre-season tours, he's being booed by United fans. That was where he was. I even people that I am friendly with who don't like football, they they knew that Harry Maguire was this joke figure in the world of football. That's where he was, and yet and if I told them now that he is now one of United's most important players, they'd think I was making it up. That
yeah.
he's turned it around completely.
Absolutely. 100%. That is exactly it. I mean, it's like nowadays with social media, things go viral very quickly, and people who have no idea about football very quickly see funny memes, and then, you'll just say, "Oh, who's that guy? Oh, it's Harry Maguire. Oh, well, he must be a bit of a joke," like you said, Kyle. And but he's completely turned it around. Um, yeah, and just he's showing everything that he's about, and if it's very hard to say anything but good things about him at the minute. And again, everybody form goes up and down. I'm sure he will have a bit of a dip in form as everyone does, but people, will no longer think, "Oh, that's typical Harry Maguire." They'll be saying, "Oh no, he'll bounce back from this. That's what he does. He's got the right mindset. He'll bounce back. He'll bounce back." And I think that's the difference now. People see how strong a character he is, and the quality he has, and that form is temporary, and but class is permanent, and he does have a bit of class and fairness to him.
And it says it all that Amorim has already confirmed that Maguire's going to be here next season. So he sees him as not just someone for this season, but someone for the future as well. Um, uh, yeah, he said. I think what Amorim when he confirmed this, the line that he used was that this squad lacks leaders, and Harry is a leader, so he will be here next season. So
Yeah,
that was
yeah,
a big compliment indeed. But I'm sure he has extra motivation to get United into the final next week because Harry Maguire has never actually started a final for United, which might surprise you. Um, I think in the 2021 Europa League final, he was injured, so he didn't play in that game. Um, the 2023 League Cup final, when we beat Newcastle, I think he came on towards in the 88th minute or something, just so he could lift the trophy with Bruno Fernandes. Ten Hag didn't select him that day. I think he was out of favour. And then the same with the FA Cup final that year when we lost to City. I think he was not selected. Lindelof was selected ahead of him alongside Varane in that game. And then the FA Cup final, which we won uh, against City last year, he didn't play in that either. Um, yeah, the centre back pairing I believe was Varane and Martinez there. So yeah, Maguire has not started a final for United. So if we get through the second leg and we're in the final, I think undoubtedly if he's fit, he will start this one. So he's
yeah,
probably got that wee bit more motivation than some of the players that have been there a while because he's yet to start in the final. And
yeah.
that's what you want
Absolutely.
as a United player. when you put in all that hard work all season, to get to the final of a competition, you want to be playing in it. So
Absolutely, 100% you do. And that's it. And again, it just shows, if that is the motivation, which, yeah, I've no doubt, I'm sure that it is. It just shows you the difference when players are motivated, and you talked earlier about confidence as well, Kyle, and his confidence being high and the difference that that makes. And again, not to harp back to as I probably tend to do a lot about the Fergie days and the things, but, comparing to when we were sort of serial winners, really. You always talk about it was never being satisfied. It was all about always wanting to win at all times and being constantly motivated. And that's it. Just again, more examples of the importance of that motivation and confidence. And then the two breed each other, don't they? The more motivated you are, the more you win. The more you win, the more confident you become. And the more confident you become, the more you then go on to win again. So it just it becomes that cycle. And I think that's what it is. For United right now is it's trying to get that motivation. And we game, United talked about it a lot on the podcast here. Is not being satisfied with a loss or even a draw. Actually sort of being, uh, you know, almost taking it as a personal affront if you lose. And not getting used to losing. And I think that's what we need. And like you said, the players like Maguire who seem to have that motivation are in form. And it's probably not, it's not a coincidence.
Maguire, I think last night admitted that United were a mess when they were adapting to the new manager and Amorim. And yeah, we saw that, some of the results and some of the performances back then.
Really.
So they really struggled to adapt to this system, but it very much has suited him because we've seen him playing a back three before for England and Leicester. So him playing as the central centre back in a back three, that really suits him. And
Mhm.
we've obviously seen that a lot recently. So the second goal, brilliant cross from Mazrahi. Holland, for once, in the right place at the right time, but the defender yanks him back and he denies him a clear goal scoring opportunity. Of course, the referee didn't initially see it. It went to VAR and you sent it to the screen, and he decided that it was a penalty and a red card. Now, Bilbao, the media in the Basque country and the supporters were absolutely furious with the referee. They accepted it was a penalty, but they didn't believe it was a red card. And Bruno Fernandes did an interview with Spanish television, I think, after the game as well. When these are things you do when you're captain of a club, and he had to explain the rules of football in Spanish to these people. He kept quizzing him on every decision that the referee had made, and he was like, and it's clear, if you foul someone in the box deliberately and deny a clear goal scoring opportunity, it's a red card. Now,
Really.
the new rule that came in recently was that if it's like an accidental foul and a penalty can be given but not a red card, but if you deliberately deny a goal scoring opportunity, it has to be a red. So they can have zero complaints. These these are the type of things you might have got away with in a pre-VAR era. But when there's so many cameras on you, you're taking a massive risk when you do that as a defender. Put your hand on someone like that, you're
Yeah.
asking for trouble.
I don't
Um,
know if you notice as well, Kai, but just to add insult to injury, the defender actually almost sort of leans over Hoyland as if to shout at him when he goes down. Don't know if you noticed that or not. So he didn't help himself either. You know what I mean? He was aggressively. Do you know what I mean? Almost saying, get up. You're diving sort of thing. Even though he had clearly put his arm around him and had clearly fouled him, and he had the audacity then to start having a go at Hoyland as if I didn't do anything wrong. Do you know that sort of way? So he didn't help himself in the referee's eyes either. I wouldn't have thought.
did the defender almost think that because he's playing at home and it's known for being an intimidating atmosphere. But there's no way a red card will be given against the home team, so I'll do whatever I want here in the penalty box and I'll get away with it. Is that how arrogant he is?
Potentially, yeah. Potentially, yeah. I mean, if you like I say, what's the penalty back again? You see as soon as Hoyland goes down, he starts, almost leaning over towards him as if he's going to shout in his face. Doesn't go right down, but he's leaning over. You can see him shouting at him. So yeah, he certainly didn't think it was going to be a penalty. In his mind, clearly he thought that Hoyland's dived, and there's no foul here. And I mean, he couldn't have been further from the truth. He clearly fouled him clearly, like you say, clearly stopped him. from having a goal score opportunity. And yeah, I mean the rules are the rules, and no matter what he thought, the rules are the rules. And well, I mean, I guess we see it often where the rules are the rules, but they don't seem to always apply. But on this occasion, they actually did apply. So yeah, I mean, it was pretty cut and shut, to be honest.
Yeah, sometimes in the Premier League, this type of thing has happened to a United player in the box and nothing's been given. Um, but the decisions have definitely been rightful decisions have been going United's way in the Europa League. So we've now had a red card in every knockout round so far, given against the other team. But I would say the Sociedad one was deserved because Dorgu was through and he pulled him down. Um, Last night was deserved because he denied Rasmus a clear goal scoring opportunity. The one against Leon, the second yellow, I think that was a bit harsh because I think he accidentally tripped Lenny Yarrow, and I don't think it was worthy of a second yellow. So I'll admit that one was a bit harsh, but the other two were definitely deserved reds. Um, but it's good to see that United are actually getting decisions they deserve in European football because sometimes in the Premier League you see United players having their shirt pulled in the box and nothing being given. So I think
Totally agree.
I'm afraid the Bilbao fans and their media can have zero complaints. I was listening to a bit of the Athletic Man United podcast earlier on, Talk of the Devils, and Andy Mitten was at the game, and he was contributing to the podcast from inside the bowels of the stadium, and at one stage when he was talking, there was this very irate, Basque journalist going crazy, there and he was still very annoyed at the result, clearly, and very annoyed at the referee. I mean, sometimes teams can blame the referee and they have a case. Last night was not one of them, Chris.
Yeah, I agree, Kyle. That's it. At the end of the day, like we said there, the rules are the rules. You can blame. You can get angry, in my opinion. You think you get angry at referees for not applying the rules, and sometimes fans get annoyed with the referee for applying the rules against them if they're not applying the rules against the opposition, or they haven't applied the rules against a rival, say in the same weekend or something. And that's highly frustrating. But it is literally impossible to have a problem with a referee who has applied the rules correctly. Like you just can't you can't argue with that. Do you know what I'm saying? And in this case, the rules were applied. So, like you said, the question is, were they hoping the rules wouldn't be applied, or are they trying to claim that he didn't actually foul him, which means that do the fans and the medians being think that the contact that he had putting his arm on him wasn't enough to bring him down. I mean, it looked to me like there was enough contact there for sure. And once again, even if there wasn't, you all know that footballers will take any opportunity, and him putting his arm on him was just inviting trouble, as you said. So player really only has himself to
Yeah.
blame for being silly. Like you maybe thought he would get away with it, but you invited the referee. You know, yeah,
This happens at the other end of the pitch. The 60,000 fans will be baying for blood, looking for a
absolutely,
penalty and a red card. And if
100%,
they didn't get it, they'd be crying after the game about not getting that decision.
exactly.
So I don't want to hear it. I
No,
don't care. They can
the
cry all they.
same. 100%, yeah, and that's it. I mean, and they're already 1-0 down. Do you know what I mean? So, United are already ahead. It's a genuine penalty and a red card. I mean, even if the man doesn't get sent off, they're still 2-0 down. Yeah, okay, they've more chance of coming back. But United could still, as they did in the second half, defend well and set that out. It's not as if the red card was the absolute thing that changed the game. I don't think. I mean, I know you could argue that, yeah, but
Maybe
you know,
they should worry about more of the chances that they missed a 0-0. That's what they should
exactly,
be concerned about rather than the
exactly.
referee.
100% agree. No, totally agree. Yeah, no, to me, yeah, absolute stonewall penalty. I don't see any issues with it at all. And like you said, Kai, the rules are the rules. That means the man has to be sent off. The rules were applied correctly. That's it. You can argue, you can complain when they don't get applied correctly, either against your team or for your team, or if it's a rival and they got away with something. But you can't really complain when the rules are there and they actually are used. That's the rules.
He's a he's a very silly guy because some people might say the chances are Rasmus heads that ball over the crossbar and doesn't score. He should have just let him have get that header in on goal and see what happened. Um, Rasmus doesn't doesn't have a reputation for scoring a lot
That's
of
what I was,
goals.
so I was just going to say, if he knew much about Rathmas
I
Oiling,
know,
he would have known there was a good chance he might not scored anyway. So
I
actually,
know.
he should have let him go and hope he missed. You know what I mean? And he may have. Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
You
But
know, yeah.
he decided to pull him down, and it's a penalty and red card. Bruno, very, very cool penalty under the circumstances,
Mhm.
as always. It's that
He's a good
phrase.
customer.
He's got ice in his veins.
Mm.
Um, he always seems to be able to read the goalkeeper at the very last second.
He
Like, how many
does,
times
doesn't
do you
he?
see Bruno put the ball into the opposite corner of where the goalkeeper
Mhm.
dives?
He does
Uh,
it all the time, and he doesn't smash the ball either. He does that wee running hop sort of thing that he does. He doesn't put a massive amount of power, if you notice on the penalty. So you're right. He really it's all about him reading the keeper and going the other way.
Sometimes he goes for power. He mixes it up a bit. He doesn't like being
Yeah,
too predictable.
fair enough. Fair enough.
Um, last night was one of those ones where he does the wee stuttering run up and then he just kind of places it right into the corner. But sometimes he absolutely rifles it into the corner. He must be
Fair enough.
practicing those a lot because a lot. Whether he goes for power or placement, they're always right in the corner. Yes, he went for power against Leon in the previous round. The keeper actually guessed right that time, but couldn't get anywhere near it because it was so far into the corner. Yes, his penalties are just inch perfect.
Brilliant.
Um, and then soon after that, he gets another goal. There's a bit of like a ping ball where a lot of Bilbao United players are tackling each other. And eventually it falls to Ugarte and he backheels it into the path of Bruno, who's onside, and he's through 1-on-1 and he's clinical. He
What a
puts it
finish.
away.
Unbelievable finish. But what I noticed about that finish was how quickly he gets his body shaped to shoot because actually he's got no time. There's defenders all around him. It's happening at pace. And the ball, when I say it, it's almost like the ball is almost too square for him. It needs to be right in the middle of his feet. And it's not that easy to do that, but he just sort of moves his body and just hooks it perfectly. I mean, it's a great finish, like really, really good finish. Yeah. Yeah, pure quality.
Yeah, it was. And for once, Garnacho scored a 1-on-1. And typically he's offside whenever he does it. He finally scores a 1-on-1 and then the flag goes up. And you're like, for fuck's sake.
It's typical. I know. Well, that's it. I know. Well, like, progress, Kai. It's all about the progress, all about the journey. You know what I mean? Progress.
Um, yeah, another captain's performance last night from Bruno Fernandes, and it could have been 4-0 at half time. That's just unbelievable to think that that could have happened. Mazraoui goes for it outside the box with the left foot, which is a weak foot, and just smashes against the crossbar. And you're like, what am I watching here? United going 4-0 up at half time against Athletic Bilbao away from home.
It's incredible, like, it's incredible, but just shows you again what that confidence does. Whenever you're getting a bit of confidence, you start to try things you wouldn't try when it's tight and you're feeling under pressure. No, brilliant, brilliant. Yeah, exactly. No, it was a great game, great result. Yeah, I mean, it was brilliant. Law may continue into the next round.
Yeah, I know it's
Or
a
sorry, I
lot.
should have said the next leg. Should have said not the next round.
I know this is largely down to them having 10 men for you know 55 minutes, but United had 73% possession. Uh, 14 shots to their nine, seven on target to their three, uh, 631 passes to they just had 228 passes, which is very, very low. And yeah, had four clear cut chances. They had one. We had five corners. They had four, two block shots to one. Uh, yeah, so United's goalkeeper only had to make two saves. I think Onana made a good save very early on as one of the chances they had at 0-0. One of the Williams brothers had a header, a free header at 0-0, and he put it over the crossbar. That was a miss that's going to haunt him now because you might say Bilbao might have a chance of winning the Europa League again in the next few years, but they're not going to be hosting the final anytime soon again. This is why they're so annoyed and so upset. The final is in their stadium, and it looks like they've blown it already.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
mean well, you're right. That's a good point. I actually forgot about that. That's bound to have been needling them and needling the fans as well. They all thought they were going to have the final in their home stadium, and then it just yeah, it's not looking good.
they were probably thinking we are fourth in the Liga behind Atletico, Real, Barcelona. So we're and we have the best defensive record in that league. We've only conceded 2 goals at home in the whole of the Europa League this season. And we've got really good attacking players. We've got Spanish internationals, Ghanaian internationals. We fancy ourselves against the team that's 14th in the Premier League. They've only won 6 league matches under their new manager. This is not the Man United of 1999 or 2008. We fancy Champions here, and they end up getting blown away in the first half. You'd forgive them for being confident ahead of the game, but
No, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think most United fans, myself, and I'm sure you could, Kyle. There's I mean, I certainly wasn't approaching this game thinking we're the favourites here, or oh, we've got we've got a really good chance. I'm thinking this is going to be tough, and we need to just do our best. I mean, I'd nearly taken a draw last night. You know what I mean? Before the
yeah,
game, thought just don't get blown away like what we did. Just don't let be on the receiving end of that. And I've been happy enough 0-0, and I would have taken that all day long. That'd have been okay. So yeah, I mean, you can understand why yeah, they were hoping and expecting probably to win the game. And I'm sure it has come as a massive blow that they got kind of trounced really
yeah, I would have taken the draw before kickoff.
for sure.
But but typically whenever we do win comfortably, I always wish that it was more. Um, Especially playing against 10 men. We're 3-0 up at half time and it finished 3-0. I thought that United might get a fourth or a fifth in the second half and absolutely put this tie to bed. But they
Yeah,
didn't get that fourth goal. Now, I think the approach from Amorim, and it was clearly the approach came from him, but the approach of the team in the second half was to just keep the ball and frustrate, and we'll work the chances. We're not going to go hell for leather and look for that
yeah,
fourth or fifth goal. They didn't do that. They kind of just stuck with what they've got and didn't try to take any more risks. They were happy to take the 3-0 back to Old Trafford rather than, really poor numbers forward looking for that fourth goal. They didn't want to risk Bilbao getting that goal and getting themselves back into the
well,
tie
that's it.
because that
That's
happened
it.
in the other tie.
Hmm.
Um, Spurs were 3-0 up and Bodo Glimt got a late goal. And we all know Bodo Glimt, nobody in Europe goes there and wins because of the plastic pitch, the freezing conditions in the Arctic Circle. So a 2 goal lead is doesn't guarantee Spurs anything.
No.
Um, they could end up losing 2-0 there and losing on penalties. Wouldn't surprise me. It'd be a very Spursy thing to do. So I'm glad. I know I wanted a fourth or fifth goal, but I am glad that United avoided conceding last night
Yeah.
and came away with the 3-0 victory.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think that is exactly it. Is that yeah, if we pour everything forward trying to get that fourth and or fifth goal, that's it. You're not guaranteed that you're going to get it, and you leave yourselves open to conceding. And unfortunately, United have done that far too often. And yeah, so I mean, on balance, you scored 3 goals. You're 11 against 10. Yeah, the safe and smart play. The head of the fan says, "Oh, go and score more," and let's just put it to bed. But like I say, the manager probably did the right thing, as you said there, Kyle. Just saying no, we're gonna set it out and 3-0. 3-0 is a nice advantage to take back to Old Trafford. Let's just solidify that and don't risk it. And I think that was the right thing to do, really. All in all, yeah,
It'd be interesting to see what the approach is in the second leg from Amorim. Will we go out looking for the fourth goal to just kill off the tie, or will we just kind of pass the ball around in midfield and try to frustrate them and just play for the 0-0 essentially? I tell you what, do you see if the game is the most drab, boring, torturous 0-0? I'd take that all day long. I'll sit through
of
that
course.
with joy. Yeah.
Enjoy every bit of it. Yeah, I think you always hear managers saying it. Like I don't think you can actually play for a 0-0. I feel like playing for a 0-0 means you've more chance of getting beat. So I don't think they can play for the 0-0, but I don't think that they have to necessarily um go out and try and get, score two in the first half or anything. So I think you're right, Kyle. I feel like it'll be something in between, try and play the way that they normally want to play, and try and, yeah, get the fourth and or fifth goals or whatever, but not by going out and just playing for 0-0, because I think if you do that, you invite pressure. You probably aren't going to get 0-0. You're going to concede, and then all of a sudden, then plan goes out the window, because then well, I mean, I know we can soak up 3 goals, but you don't want to get anywhere close to that, really. So I think they have to go out and just play for a win, but not go hell for leather kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it'll be a similar approach to the second half last night. United will try and keep possession, but they'll not pour the bodies forward.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
it'll be uh attack with caution type
Yeah,
approach. We'll work the chances, but we won't try and force the issue.
yeah,
And if Bilbao now it's shit or bust, they might maul out, they might press United very high up the pitch. And if they do
but they'll
that, then
have to.
I would just go long.
Yeah,
If
absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree. Yeah, I think they probably will do that. I mean, yeah, be surprised if they don't, given that, if they were 1-0 down, you would say they might do what you just said there themselves and try and work the chances and hope to get that first goal and don't concede. But they're 3-0 down. They need to absolutely throw caution to the wind, really. They need to kind of, throw the sink at it. So I think they probably will come out trying to, or
yeah,
you think that'll be the
we
plan.
just
So yeah,
it'd be great to score early, but let's say we don't. Um, we just need to stop them from scoring early or
absolutely.
scoring in the first half.
Yeah,
Because if we get the half time and they haven't scored,
yeah,
then the more desperate they're going to get,
yeah,
and then
absolutely.
it'll play into our hands.
Yeah, 100% agree. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep. Totally right. Yep. That's exactly. I think that is exactly it. Yeah. But yeah, it puts them under more pressure, not by us going and scoring more goals. It puts them under more pressure by just frustrating them and letting, and sort of making them feel like they're never going to score against us. And then they'll just that just means that, they eventually will start to feel like we're never going to get back into this. It's done. And that, and like you say, Kyle, then, desperation may set in, and then, maybe we'll make some mistakes, which gives us chances. And if we can, and maybe that is the approach, just sit and wait for those mistakes to happen and those chances, and sort of make the most of, if they are being kind of, yeah, if they are playing in a kind of a desperate sort of a way.
yeah. The longer the game goes on at 0-0, the more bodies they'll throw forward, and that plays in their hands. Then
Absolutely.
leaves more gaps in behind for us to exploit.
So,
But I have to say, I'm growing in confidence about United not only winning this tie but winning the Europa League with Amad Diallo making his comeback last night late on in the game and demonstrating what we've missed with that bit of skill where he flicked the ball over the defender's head, then ran onto it, and then he won the foul. Yeah, that was a glimpse into what we've been missing in recent weeks, and it's great to have him back. And maybe he'll be fit to start the second leg. Certainly, he'll be fit to start the final if we get there. And having a player of that quality available again just makes us stronger. The Ligt, who'd been playing so well until his injury, is now available again at the back. And Manu come on last night as well. Mason Mount came on. Look, suddenly the bench is looking strong because you know I don't think too many of the 11 from last night will start on Sunday against Brentford. But look at the 5 players who came on last night. Amad Diallo, Kobe Manu, Mason Mount, Matthias de Ligt, and Luke Shaw. All those players could start against Brentford, and it's not
yeah.
really. You wouldn't really call that a weekend. You wouldn't call that weekend in your team, like, would you?
Most definitely not. Absolutely not. No, that's it. There is quality, and obviously, yeah, you've got players like that who, let's be honest, like Luke Shaw would be your starters if they're fit, and they just haven't been. So some of those players obviously coming in, or technically are your, and they'll be the same. They're kind of your first choice players, but they're just not quite up to match fitness. So it's a nice the position to be in, where you've got, the guys who are covering for those people out are doing pretty well. The team's in good form, and you're getting that extra boost. And again, I said it earlier, at the right time, maybe, just whenever you're coming to the business end, of the season, and we're in the Europa League and we really want to win it. Just that's a nice boost, and that gives the team a lift as well. Knowing that those players who they know are good players are coming back, and that just lifts everyone. So it's great. So hopefully it'll be a good sign.
Yeah, it wasn't in the manager's plans for Shaw to play 90 minutes against Bournemouth, but it ended up being his must, and that meant that he couldn't start against Bilbao. So Lindelof came in, and Lindelof was looking a bit ropey, throughout the game, but he did, fortuitously, clear the ball off the line. I think the ball just hit him really. He was in the right place at the right time, really. It wasn't as if he stretched for it and had to,
No, Kyle. I think that was maybe just he just
but
knew where he needed to
and
be. I'm really
he was
joking.
actually making up for his own mistake as well because his initial clearance went straight to a Bilbao player, and then that effort then just hit him, and when he was on the goal line, and so he got away with one there. But there were a few occasions where he was losing his man as he often does, and yeah, you know I'm like most United fans that I think Lindelof is outdid his welcome at Old Trafford, and
So did I.
I think it was Mark Ogden who said yesterday on ESPN that he said that Lindelof and Dallo typify the malaise that set in at Old Trafford, in that all these players that have been there far too long when they don't deserve to be there. And yeah, and I would agree with that. Yeah, so he was like an emergency option really because Delict was not is only just back in training, not fit enough to start last night, and Luke Shaw played 90 minutes at the weekend, and he's still making his way back to fitness. So that was in, you know, starting so soon after playing 90 minutes on Sunday was I thought that was too risky. So obviously Martinez is not available, so Lindelof had to play. Eden Haben, of course, not available at the moment either. So Lindelof was the only other centre back that could play with Yarrow and Maguire, and he came in, and I was worried about that. In the away leg, especially against Bilbao, a team of that quality, I was worried about Lindelof. But the mistakes that he made, he got away with, and whether he meant it or not, he did clear one off the line, and so that's a positive. Having said that, I would be starting to elect in the second leg.
Yeah, I agree. I think if the like this is fit, he definitely has to start for sure. Over Lindelof, I think that's a no brainer. No, I don't think there'd be too many people would disagree with you saying that he's outstayed his welcome, Kyle, and what Mark Ogden said about it being typical of the Malays. I mean, it is really, Look, Lindelof has played a lot of games for United. I think most people would say that he probably in another era probably wouldn't have had very much game time at all. But at a point in time, he was him and Maguire were our two starting centre backs, as you know. But yeah, I think hopefully those days are kind of coming towards an end now, really. And I think I mean I think Lindelof's time must be limited. I would think.
It shows you how things have changed in that in the 2023 FA Cup final, when United needed a partner for Varane, he went with Lindelof and left Maguire out. Whereas now Maguire's a mainstay and Lindelof is the one that you don't want to see in the team. So it, that situation has completely changed. And Lindelof will be moved on this summer because he's out of contract, like Christian Eriksen. So that those players will not be getting new deals. I think some people were worried because Amorim used to be a teammate of Victor Lindelof at Benfica. I'm thinking, oh, he might get a new deal here because of that, but Amorim's not going to be, sentimental like that. He knows that Lindelof is, you know, coming towards the end of his United career and needs to be moved on. And I think him and Ineos will be in agreement on that one. But had to be used last night because of the situation with the other centre back. So hopefully either Shaw or Delict will start the second leg. Because sometimes Lindelof can have a good game. Sometimes, like last night, he can just get away with it. But I wouldn't want to be playing him too many times because
No,
eventually you
you
won't
just
get away with it.
exactly you just increase the risk that something's going to go wrong. Yeah, no,
Mm.
no, you're right. Look, I think that's a simple one, really. Lindelof has been at United now for what since I don't know, 20, I don't know how long he's been there, a long time, a long time.
2017. Yeah.
2017. I
And
mean, yeah,
and I remember his debut very well because it was against Huddersfield actually, and when they were in the Premier League, which wasn't very long. Phil Jones got injured. Like, what more can you say? And Lindelof then was brought on for his debut. Then Huddersfield played a long ball over the top, bounced over Lindelof's head. Striker runs onto it and scores past the keeper. And that just was a sign of things to come.
yeah, I think you're right. It's some of the career up in his very first game. And it never got much better. I remember at the time a lot of talk about yeah, he'd come. I think it was Benfica. He said, yeah, I remember the talk at the time that he'd come from Benfica, and that Benfica were used to having a lot of possession and kind of dominating most games in that league. And I remember some people saying that the team that he's coming into and the style of play and the Premiership generally, that's not going to be happening, and that he might struggle with that. And really, like you said, Kyle, he did from day one, and
Yeah,
he always kind of has. He never really got any better.
like he'd probably get away with being like a third choice centre back for Barcelona, something like
Yeah,
that, where they're
yeah,
dominating
exactly.
possession, and he's quite good on the ball,
Yeah,
to a certain extent. You know, I mean,
yeah,
and he does have a bit of football in him. I mean, he scored a wonder free kick for Benfica, which we've
yeah,
never seen him do that for United. He probably never had the chance to take one for a start, but um, yeah, he's more of like of a ball playing centre half. He's
yeah,
not a big physical, imposing centre half that you associate with the Premier League.
yeah,
And he Huddersfield was like exactly the opposite of what he would have been used to playing in the Portuguese league for Benfica. Big ball over the top, and the bounce evades him, and then
yeah,
the sort of Huddersfield striker then gets in behind and scores.
yeah.
He wouldn't have been used to that sort of ball in the Portuguese league, where
No,
route one balls like that just.
no. Uh,
So it's no wonder that Mourinho was actually reluctant to actually play. It was a while before he met. This wasn't like the first game of the season or anything like that. This was like maybe a month or two into the season before Mourinho actually brought him on, and he only brought him on because Phil Jones got injured. So even Mourinho didn't really fancy him in the Premier League. So
yeah.
uh,
Yeah, no, yeah, like I said, I always remember those. Always remember just the chat about that, like I said at the very very start, and that with yeah with Benfica, um, and that's the thing. I mean, you hear that and you go, okay, he doesn't sound like a great fit, but maybe just maybe he'll adapt and he'll get used to it and he'll get better. But and for some players that is what happens. They're able to adapt and they just put the work in and they do what they need to do, but that hasn't happened with Lindelof, and yeah, he never really looked any different to what he was day one. Like you said, Kyle, yeah, that's it. He has got he's got football in him for sure. He always you see him love bringing the ball out of the back and playing sort of a long ball or a crossfield pass. He enjoys being on the ball like that, but. Yeah, and that works really well whenever you're dominating all the time. But when you're really up against it, unfortunately, those are the attributes that you're going to be looking for. And
yeah,
yeah, he's up against it
Benfica
already with United.
at Benfica he's dominating possession. And he's getting lots of touches on the ball. At United, he's constantly under pressure.
Yeah,
That's
exactly. That's the difference. Yeah,
and him that Maguire Lindelof partnership that you alluded to under Solskjaer that just still gives me nightmares. I know Maguire has regained his reputation since then, but Lindelof certainly has not. And for him to be at United,
mm,
is it 8 years? And
yeah,
what has he made, 300 appearances or something? That's way too many
and
for a player of that quality. And it's not as if
it's a
he's been much of a goal threat either at the other end. He must have scored about two or three goals, and that's it.
yeah, it's rare. It's like Mark Ogden said as he mentioned a minute ago, Kyle. It's typical of the Malays that he got so many games. You know what I mean? And in another era, he wouldn't have got anything near that.
Yeah,
And that's interesting too that you said about Maguire in a comparison with him. It's weird. It's almost like Maguire's been more up and down. Maguire's went from really low to pretty high, whereas Lindelof has never been that low, but he's never got that high either. He's always been kind of just average, and I think that is the thing, average to often below average when he was needed to be, he was needed to step up. He didn't, or he was under pressure, and he kind of he kind of cracked. Um, so yeah,
It was
yeah, it's just been average at best, I guess.
another. I'm just thinking of a goal that we conceded against Newcastle under Ten Hag at St James's Park. I think it was a ball. They had a free kick on the right hand side. Newcastle. It's whipped in, and the Newcastle forward just easily beats Lindelof in the air and heads it into the far corner of the net. And you're like, and it wasn't even a contest in the air. And you're like, this is the problem with Lindelof is that he's just never going to be suited to the Premier League because if you're going to be a Premier League centre half, you have to win headers. We've seen Maguire do it. We've seen Varane do it. We've seen many Van Dijk, John Terry, whoever. You have to be strong in the air to succeed in the Premier League. Lindelof has never been that. He's always
Never been.
struggled in those contests.
That's it.
Mm.
Absolutely, yeah. That is it. He's just not. He just technically never really suited the Premier League, and not suited to even not the Premier League. To United in the Premier League during the time he's been there when we weren't at our best, when we have been under pressure, when we aren't going to be dominating games. Where we're gonna we're just it's just not. It just hasn't been like that. So yeah, he's not.
Yeah, yeah,
He's never really been well suited to the team that he's
yeah.
found
I
himself
just
in.
remembered there the Newcastle goal I'm talking about. I think it was Callum Wilson who scored the header for Newcastle. He isn't really t- he isn't really a tall centre forward by any means. Yet he's still easily able to beat Lindelof in the air. Yeah. Anyway, he's going to be leaving in the summer, so I suppose that's good. But I wish him well for the rest of his career. But
Yeah.
he won't be remembered as a successful signing. Um,
No, unfortunately not. Unfortunately not.
so United, I expect wholesale changes at the weekend. As I said, all the players come off the bench might start the game against Brentford. Shaw, Delict, Mount, Menu, and Diallo. Might also see youngsters like Harry Amos get another opportunity. Don't know if he'll change the goalkeeper or not. I don't think it even matters because Ben Deere didn't cover himself in glory in that game against Newcastle. Um, Benito Mentato might get another opportunity. Oh no, what's another? I seen him playing for the youth team, so he hasn't actually played for the seniors yet. So he might get a chance, and he's an exciting player. He scored a wonderful goal against the Arsenal's youth team in the FA Youth Cup there a couple of months ago. He's and he just signed a new contract, so he's a very exciting talent. So we might get a good look at him on Sunday at Brentford. I know these Premier League games now for United are just totally meaningless because we can't be relegated, we can't finish in European spots, and the Europa League is the focus because that gets us into Champions League next season. But at the same time, our record at Brentford is absolutely piss poor.
Yeah.
Um, we we won at Brentford away under Ranić when Ronaldo was there. I remember that. I think we won 3-1 that night in the blue shirts with the yellow trim. But since then, we have had some dreadful performances at Brentford. Obviously, the 4-0 in Ten Hag's second game in charge was the lowest of lows at United. Um, when we were wearing those luminous green kit. And then last season, somehow we escaped with a 1-each draw when Mason Mount scored against Brentford, and we thought he scored in stoppage time. We thought we've stolen it here because I remember the stats from this game. Brentford had 30 shots on goal against United. It was despicable for United to play against the mighty Brentford and and have a goal being absolutely peppered. But that's what it was like under Ten Hag, last season. Other teams were just utterly dominating games against us, and so we thought we'd stolen it with that Mason Mount goal from the bench, and then typical United fashion, we go and concede at the other end with like the last kick of the match, and it's a 1-each draw. But they absolutely battered us. We were so lucky to get away with a 1-each draw. And even at Old Trafford in the last two seasons, Brentford have been 1-0 up, and the McTominay rescue act where he gets the two goals from the bench. And then we got two goals in the second half, I think, this season as well against them. So Brentford have done really well against United, and especially at home. Uh, so I like to put that, even though the game doesn't mean anything, I would like to put that right, if you know what I mean. I don't want to lose
Yeah.
any game. You know, and you want to build momentum and confidence. So we like United to try and get a result. Last weekend against Bournemouth, we I think we were probably the better team, to be honest. But yet again, we just couldn't put the ball back in net until the 94th minute when Rasmus eventually scored, and we managed to avoid defeat. Didn't want to get another defeat, even if it doesn't matter. We don't want to be losing games. I'm conscious that Amorim only got 6 league wins since he took over in November, which is a very, very low
Yeah.
number.
You
So
definitely, you're definitely not. You're right. You're right. You're, I mean, you're definitely not. Even though it doesn't technically mean anything in terms of the league, really. That said, what it does mean, and this is the thing about United right now, given Radcliffe's comments, not no not that long ago about how close to bankruptcy we were, whether you believe that or not. I mean, seemed
Alex,
unbelievable. Exactly, seemed completely unbelievable. But whether you believe it or not, what it does tell me is that they're interested, as we can imagine, in probably every penny that they can get. And so league position does matter in terms of a couple of extra million here and there, and that is something. So there'll be a motivation, I would imagine, at board level for United not completely, disregard the league and just fall down. They're never not going to be relegated, but they fall down any further. So I think there's that motivation from above. But you're right from a purely footballing perspective. There's motivation because we haven't been particularly great against Brentford. And there's lots of reason to go there and try and get a result. And it's going to be a tough game. They're a decent team. I know their league position is not incredible either, but they're certainly they are no slouches, and like I quite highly rate their manager Thomas Frank. I think he's good, and I think it's not going to be an easy match. And like you said as well, I agree with you. Momentum's important, and particularly coming in if we have another couple of games and do get the final of the Europa League, you want players can get injured and you need people to come in as we've seen plenty and fill their spots, and you want those players to be coming in confident and happy. You don't want them coming in saying, "Oh, every time I play we lose," or or "I made a mistake." So you want to have a good strong squad. And I think that means that being able to go and win games, even if it's not your first 11, even though, of course, in the Premier League, it's a very competitive league, and that makes it more difficult. But so yeah, I think the sentiment that you're sort of saying there, I would agree with, is that with motivation and plenty of reasons to go and try and win. So it's not like we could just give up and say, "Oh, we'll just put on whoever and we don't care." I think, I mean, I don't think that would ever be the case anyway, United. But yeah, there's enough motivation to go and win that game. So hopefully, um, despite resting players, you can go out and put on a decent performance. And Brentford haven't been that much better than us really in the league. So while I'm saying they're strong and they are, and it's going to be a tough game, you'd fancy would have a chance still. So yeah, hopefully it'll be a decent game.
yeah, Bournemouth are ahead of Brentford, and yet you know they were no big shakes when we played them last Sunday. United had most of the possession and the chances in the game. I know they had a man sent off, but 20 minutes to go. But even before that, United were playing better than them. Um, so won't be surprised if this is a competitive game as well. And even though Brentford are 10 points ahead of us and they're 11th, that's how bad United are. We're 10 points off the team in 11th position. Um, but uh, how embarrassing is it for Europe that the likely outcome now is that the team 14th in the Premier League and the team 16th in the Premier League are going to be in the Europa League final. And we've had teams that are fourth in Spain, third in France, third in the Bundesliga, all been knocked out by United and Spurs.
Yeah. It's unbelievable, but what it also does is it tells you the strength of the Premier League and how competitive the Premier League is that you can be 14th in the Premier League or 16th in the Premier League and still be capable of beating teams that are third in La Liga, etc. And like you said about France as well. Um, it is a very competitive league. There's no two ways about that, and I think that it means that the quality is higher across the board. It also means though that teams get tougher games all the time, so they're kind of um not as fresh maybe in some ways in Europe. So I think it can work in good ways and bad ways for Premier League teams. But I think that yeah, you're right, Kyle. I think it's not completely unsurprising in some ways.
It's also going to be rather amusing that unless Arsenal turn it around against PSG, um, then effectively means that the the top six. No, I mean, hold on. Let me look at the table. So, no, the top four in the Premier League, none of them are going to be in European finals. Yet the team 14th and 16th are going to be in a European final against each other. Uh, the reason why I was going to say only the 14th and 16th teams are going to be in a European final, but we have to remember that Chelsea are probably going to be in the Mickey Mouse final as well, because they won their first leg 4-1 away from home, and uh, I've never even heard of the team that Chelsea are playing. That competition is just just absolutely uh, ridiculous in
It's
terms of
like
the
the way
level.
you get called the Mickey Mouse final, but in
You
some
know,
ways, I always thought the Europa League was the Mickey Mouse final. So
yeah,
it's the Mickey Mouse, and then what does that make the Europa the Conference League? It's the Mickey Mouse of the Mickey Mouse. You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
like
it's the
yeah,
Europa Pub League.
exactly yeah,
I haven't said that Real Betis are playing Fiorentina in the other semi-final in that league, so that's a pretty that could be a credible Europa League semi-final. Um,
yeah. No, absolutely, 100% agree. Yeah.
and Anthony scored an absolute rasper for Real Betis against Fiorentina, past David De Gea with his right foot. Would you believe? I think even
Aye.
David De Gea said in his post-match interview that in training he never scored a goal with his right foot, yet he did it last night.
You can believe it. Yeah, yeah. I
Um,
mean, fair play to him. Yeah, yeah. We've
uh,
talked at length about Anthony in the past.
but
But
it's great that he's doing so well at Betis. I can't understate how much they love him in
yeah,
Seville,
did he seem to? Yeah,
well, he's one half of Seville anyway. And they're Joaquin, one of their legends, and one of the current players, Isco. They've made they've done several interviews where they've said we must do whatever it takes to keep this guy. We have to sell our stadium. Let's do it in order to keep Anthony at this club. That's how well he's done there. And with every goal, his value probably goes up. And they're increasing rumours that Atletico Madrid are sniffing around, and that is
yeah,
great news for United because they're a club in Spain that could actually afford to buy Anthony and pay his wages.
yeah. You're right. No, it is a strange one. I know we've talked about him before. I mean, whenever he was highly rated at Ajax, and Ten Hag, whatever you think of Ten Hag, seemed to rate him. And as we know, and he got much criticism for it over the years, and deservedly so because he didn't do much at all at United. But it shows you there is a player in there, and it also makes you ask too what went wrong for him at United? Was he not suited to the Premier League? Was the culture at the time at United so toxic that he didn't have the same motivation that he maybe had when he was at Ajax? And is that why he didn't do it? It's hard to know, but it is interesting how well he's done. Yeah, since he's
But
moved on.
it,
But yeah.
it's not unique to him. I mean,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you're right.
M-
Absolutely not.
McTominay is absolutely turning it up in Serie A, scoring all these goals for Napoli, and they're like first or second in the league. Like they're first now actually, and then again in Naples, McTominay is like Maradona. They
Yeah.
love this guy. And so certain players, and McTominay was getting goals for United. There was a lot of games where he was rescuing us points, like coming off the bench and scoring goals and so on. But he was never going to be the main man at United. Now he's basically Napoli's number 10 behind Lukaku, and it suits him. Then in Serie A, that league really just seems to suit his game. Billy Gilmore playing alongside him. That's bizarre, isn't it? Two Scottish
That
guys
is kind of odd, actually. Yeah, I
playing
didn't
for
actually realize Billy
Napoli.
Gilmore. I
Yeah.
didn't know Billy Gilmore played outside of yeah, and he's not a bad player too. Actually, Billy Gilmore's pretty good. Yeah, yeah, it is interesting. I know. It's
But
yeah, I don't know what the way to describe that, but yeah,
look how good Sancho was for Dortmund and how poor he was at United. So it's just certain players can't cope with the pressure at Old Trafford. I mean, and
I think
it's
that's
not
all.
unique to this era either. And people will tell
Yeah,
you about Gary Birtles in the 80s, all in Brazil. Players
Yeah,
have become the United big reputations, and they just wouldn't do it.
wouldn't
Um,
do it again. Yeah,
uh,
it does. I mean, there is there that is a big part of it. Yeah, yeah, it is definitely.
Diego Forlan, and when he
Yeah.
was in La Liga playing for Villarreal and Atletico, I can't remember which club he was at when this happened, but he was the European Golden Boot winner, the top scorer in all of Europe's leagues,
Mm.
and yet he couldn't do it at Old Trafford for the most part.
Yeah,
There was the odd good
yeah,
moment, of course, scoring the double at Anfield
yeah.
and things like that, scoring the winner against Chelsea and at Old Trafford. But by and large, he wasn't a successful signing, and but yet he went to the La Liga. He's the top scorer in Europe. He was brilliant in the world in those World Cups for Uruguay. So just certain players, it just doesn't happen for them, but it happens
That's it.
to go elsewhere.
Yeah.
You know.
No, that's definitely it. It is. I mean, it's the thing. It's about all the time. There's so many factors, that will make a player do well, in my opinion. So, part of it is that they're obviously their ability. You've got their mindset, um, and their determination. Obviously, some people also settle better in countries that are not, the country they're from or where they don't speak the
And
language. Some people really throw themselves into that. Other people probably don't, and then that sometimes that makes them they don't settle, and then again, then they don't perform, and then sometimes it's just systems and teams, and it really suited them. They had a particular player beside them at one club, and they linked well. They were on the same wave. And then they get a new person, a new club. It doesn't quite happen. I think I think it's just quite complex in many ways.
yeah, and I'll come back to what you said earlier in that with regards to United and Tottenham, you know, likely being the Europa League final pairing, and that given where they are in their domestic league and they're beating teams in the top three or four in other leagues, it shows
Mm-hmm.
you how strong the Premier League is. Well, again, you can apply that to like McTominay and Anthony doing well abroad, in that McTominay scoring goals against teams in the bottom half of the Serie A, they're not going to be as strong as the teams in the bottom half of the Premier League.
No.
And likewise in La Liga, Anthony scoring against teams in the bottom half of La
Yeah.
Liga, we know that they're not as strong as teams in the Premier League because we've already beaten one of them in the Europa League in Real Sociedad. So yeah, they're playing against weaker opposition. But I also have to
Yeah.
caveat that and to
Totally
say that
agree.
it wasn't as if McTominay wasn't scoring goals for United. He was,
Yeah. No, he
but the
was.
problem was that when he wasn't in games where he didn't score, he wasn't doing much else, you know,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah, no, you're right, and I think at the time too, yeah, the comedy just he wasn't what we needed. You know what I mean? We were looking for somebody who was going to be a bit more creative, get more goals, and you're right, Kylie wasn't just doing it often enough, maybe, and in the games where he wasn't given something, he was given very little. But in terms of your coming back there about the quality of opposition, I agree. The other thing I was thinking just when you're talking earlier about Arsenal in the Champions League and stuff, I think it's like it's weird the levels, and so I kind of feel like the top teams in all of the leagues in Europe who will normally be in the Champions League will be capable often of winning the Champions League. They're at the absolute top level. I think then when you start to go down the table in those leagues, when you get past, sort of second or third, once you almost get into third, the level I think starts to drop a decent bit, but they still will do well points wise because they're still good enough to beat most of the other teams in the league because the levels get even weaker as they go down. So, they'll still be quite close in points wise to the teams at the top of the league, but in many ways the gulf in class between those teams will probably be quite high. But then you come to the Premier League, and it's like we said, I think it's just slightly more even. It's just there's just those gaps don't really exist. The top five or six teams are almost as good as each other, bar bits here and there, and then you've got a lot of strength the rest of the way down the league. So I think that's what it is that you look at Athletic Bilbao and you go, they're third in La Liga, but maybe all that means is that they're just another team that's better than all the other teams in the league, but they're still not. They're still probably maybe quite a gulf in class in many ways between them and the top three teams in the league. Even though you look at the league table, it may not reflect that. Do you know if that makes sense?
Yeah, the likes of in Germany, Spain, France, and Italy, like the top three or four, or in France's case, the top one are
Definitely.
strong teams. But the bottom 16 or whatever are not all the same quality of the bottom 16 of the Premier League. Nowhere near it.
Yeah,
And we already have the
absolutely,
evidence to prove it.
absolutely.
Spurs are 16th in the Premier League. They knocked out the team third in the Bundesliga, Frankfurt, from the Europa League. United, 14th in the Premier League, knocked out the team third in France, Lyon.
Yeah,
And United now are on the cusp of knocking out the team fourth in the Liga. It just shows you but people say but then it doesn't necessarily mean that Premier League has the best teams either, because PSG have beaten Liverpool, Villa, and now 1
yeah,
up against Arsenal going into the home leg. So it's the teams at the very top of those leagues
yeah,
could still be better than the teams at the top of the Premier League, though. It's just that
yeah, exactly.
the Premier League has more, you know, has stronger teams overall.
Yeah,
It's just that
yeah,
the teams at the top of France, Italy, Spain, Germany are still very strong and capable of beating the
yeah,
teams at the top of the Premier League. But when
yeah,
you go further down those leagues, they're not as strong as the Premier
no,
League, and we
no,
have the
that's
evidence
it.
in front of us to prove it.
Yeah, totally agree. Absolutely, totally agree. Yeah, yeah, it's interesting.
Um, so I hope United get the job done. I'm not counting my chickens yet, but we're in a very strong position. It must be said. But I'm trying to work out what I want here as a you might say this is premature, but I'm trying to work out what I want in terms of an opponent in the final. Do you want Bodo Glimt to come back and win, or do you want Spurs in the final? Now, one thing I want to factor in here is that United have not beaten Spurs in 2022, which might surprise a few people. Maybe some bad results against them, albeit the recent league game in February at the Hotspur Stadium on the League Cup match. I thought United played, I think, especially in the League Cup match, I thought United were the better side. United were the better side in the league match recently. So I think I seen a couple of Spurs fans interacting on social media, and one of them was being cocky, saying, "I forgot United in the final. We're taking that all day long because we've got a good record against United, and it's easy for us." Another Spurs fan replied to him to say, "United in finals are a different beast." So I won't be getting too cocky about it, mate. And Spurs don't have a good record of winning trophies. So we've seen
They
what's
don't have a good record. They don't have a record at all.
yeah, and that's another reason for wanting Spurs to get to the final, because they haven't won a trophy since 2008, and I think before that it must have been was it the 1999 or something? They won the League Cup or something like that. So it's one trophy in the last generation, I think. It's a very, very poor record, and they lost. They've lost the League Cup final when they sacked Mourinho 3 days before the final, which is a daft thing to do. Mourinho's record of winning finals is phenomenal. So to sack him 3 days before a League Cup final, why do
So,
if you're pissed off with the league form, let him take charge of the final first and then sack him. That was just
so
stupid.
uh, it was from a trophy perspective, it was the stupidest thing I've ever seen. But my father-in-law is a Spurs fan, and his theory, and I would say that he's probably right. I don't know where he heard this. His theory, or what he heard, the reason why that was done was because there was a clause in his contract that he would get more money or he'd get a bonus if he won the final. So actually, Daniel Levy, cheaper to sack him before he actually won the trophy. So in reality, it came down to money, and he was already going to sack him. He thought, I'm going to sack him and pay him all this extra money to win something, or I'll sack him now and it's cheaper. And let's be honest, we all know what Daniel Levy do.
That's outrageous.
Second when it's cheaper. And it doesn't. It would not surprise me. It would not surprise me if that was the reason. Wouldn't
Because
surprise me.
the man who took charge of the final was one of their former player who retired early through injury. His name escapes me now. He's always their caretaker manager whenever they sack someone, and he's still only in his 30s. Uh,
Oh yeah. Is it Andre Villas-Boas?
no, no, he's an English guy. He used to play for Spurs, but he retired at
Oh,
like
sad.
27 because of a knee
Oh,
injury or something.
oh yeah.
Uh, they always bring. He's like he must be the coach of one of their youth teams or something. But whenever they sack somebody, they always make him the caretaker, and he had no experience, and they put him in charge of a League Cup final against Chelsea. you had Mourinho in there all day long. I mean, they should have left it another week at least. But yeah, it probably did come down to money, no Daniel Levy, and of course
Well,
they lost.
yeah, that's it. Money. It had to be money. It had to be money.
And of course, they lost the Champions League final to Liverpool, as we all know, in 2019, which all United fans were devastated about because we wanted Spurs to win that Champions League against Liverpool. We didn't want them getting their sixth
No,
European Cup.
I remember it well. I remember it well. It was one of the worst, to be honest, it was one of the worst finals I've ever watched. It was a really drab final, and neither of them actually deserved to win it. Really, they were both terrible.
But
It was a terrible game.
having said that, taking everything into consideration, Tottenham have the players to hurt us on their day. They have James Maddison, they have Son, they have Solanke, who's been scoring goals this season for them up front. They've got the Kulusevski. They've shown in recent seasons that they can beat United. They've got our number. Um, so we're banking on the fact that they never win anything, and that's the reason why I would be maybe tip the other way and think that I would rather have Spurs. But I think all things considered, I'd prefer Bodo Glimt because
Right.
Bodo Glimt's the thing that's got them to this point is the home advantage in one of the legs because it's such a hard place to go. You seen Lazio lost 2-0 there. I don't think any team has went there and won this season in Europe. Because we're not talking about Oslo in southern Norway. We're talking about way up in the Arctic Circle, where like it's in the winter, it's dark like 20 hours a day, and it is freezing. They play on a plastic pitch, which is obviously very hard to get used to
Yeah,
if you're not playing on that regularly.
yeah,
So nobody wins there, regardless of the quality of the opposition. They always win their home match. But in the final, it's in Bilbao. Bodo Glimt will not have their plastic pitch and their freezing temperatures in Bilbao. Very different ball game.
yeah,
So all things considered, if we get through, I prefer to play Bodo Glimt. Although
yeah,
Spurs are 3-1 up, you would expect the most. I know Spurs are Spurs, but the most likely outcome is the Spurs will
yeah,
get through this. Um,
yeah,
yeah, I would say overall, as a final against Spurs would worry me more because not because of their history of winning trophies, which you say there is none. It's because they have got such quality players in attack,
yeah,
and that worries me.
yeah. No, I agree with you. I agree with everything you said, 100%. I think that, yeah, you're right. I think Bodo Glimt would be the easier option, but I don't think it's actually going to happen. Whether how and United would fare, I don't know. Um, yeah, it would not be easy for us. I don't know how great Spurs are goal scoring wise these days, though. Which is something that maybe Dan and their league
Yeah,
position obviously
it,
dictates that they haven't been wonderful either. So
yeah, it is something else to consider. Is that as bad as United have been in the league this season, Spurs are worse. So,
exactly. I mean, you look at the table, Spurs are literally worse. So I mean, United are not great, but
but
yeah, which is also another reason why you wonder Spurs fans feeling like they're confident and happy to have United because like they have their number. You're kind of going, "Meh,
but
exactly, not exactly brilliant."
the caveat to that is that Spurs did do the double with us in the league.
Yeah,
Um,
well, I know. Yeah, yeah, that's fair. Yeah, and that's fair enough. Yeah, but like you said, United are different beasts in finals, and finals generally are different to any other game you're going to play. And everybody's going to be more up for it because it's a final. So yeah, I think form often, as you know, league form often means nothing when you come to finals of cup competitions. It's all on the day. So yeah, I don't know.
when they beat us at Old Trafford, that was pretty close to the end for Ten Hag. United were abysmal. Their Spurs totally dominated the game. Bruno got sent off, although the red card eventually was overturned by the FA. Yeah, we're shocking that day, even with 11 men. But in the League Cup game, which we lost 4-3, United played some really good stuff. And I think Spurs must have had four chances and scored four goals, and we made a few mistakes at the back. Bayern Deer conceded direct from a corner. You can't outscore that level of goalkeeping. Um, but United scored three goals in that game, and they created many more chances. Similar in the league game, we lost 1-0 at Spurs, where United had the better chances. Garnacho missed an absolute sitter in that game, I remember. Um, yeah, it was another one of those games where we just struggled to score. We did everything but score, and that's the difference between. I'm just going to get onto this. That's the difference between Ten Hag and Amorim. And Ten Hag's final full season and the start of this season, the United that we saw was that other teams were just dominating the game and creating chance after chance after chance against United so easily. As I said earlier, Brentford having 30 shots on United's goal in one match. It's just unbelievable to think about. We're under Amorim. United are creating chances, but just don't have the forwards to put the ball in the back of the net.
Yeah,
And I feel like we're in games, we're having the majority of the chances, the majority of the possession. We just don't. We lack the cutting edge up front. So that's the difference between Ten Hag United and Amorim's United for me. Yeah.
yeah, I know what you mean. No, I think it's a fair point. And I know that since Amorim came in, it's been poor. Let's be honest, and you talked about earlier, and Maguire saying that the place was a mess and couldn't adapt, and that's obviously a big part of the reason. But overall, um, you know, things are getting a wee bit, dare I say, slightly more positive. And if they're starting to finally, um, to finally get it a wee bit, you would say that we're on the right trajectory. I mean, and I'm saying that with a massive caveat, knowing that it has been a terrible season, and there's nobody can say that it's been great and we've seen lots of progress. We absolutely have not. But you're right, Kai. There are definitely signs. Whereas again, as you said, the last time Spurs going against United, we're on the other side of that spectrum, where we're on the way down, that the decline was only going to continue, and Ten Hag was coming near the end of his time at United. So regardless of almost where we're actually at, the direction's different. We went from a direction being downwards to the direction maybe very slowly and stuttering, but at least looking like we're pointing upwards. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It is different. It's not the same circumstances, regardless of what the league form may dictate. It's not the same circumstances.
Yeah, to summarize, I I would still fancy United to beat Tottenham in a final, but I would prefer to play against Bodo Glimt.
I think most people would agree with that, myself included.
And we've already beaten Bodo Glimt this season as well. Of course, we played them in the league phase and we beat them 3-2 at Old Trafford. Um, I remember that one of the two goals that Bodo Glimt got in that game was down to Malacia making his first start after being out for like 2 years, and he was so off the pace, and they took advantage of that and scored. So they're not going to have that advantage, in a final probably, with a such a rusty player like that playing against them. And obviously, as I said, they won't have that home advantage of playing home in the Arctic Circle. It could be complete opposite. This is going to be Bilbao in late May. It's going to be probably roasting hot.
Couldn't
So
be any more different. Couldn't be any more different.
I
Like
know.
exactly, yeah. It's literally like night and day. Completely different.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, let's get our job done first, and then we'll worry about who we're playing in the final. But
Completely agree.
I'm cautiously optimistic now after that 3-0 win away from home.
Yeah, no, I agree. No, it's going to be interesting, Kyle. And I mean, look, let's be honest. I mean, if you were to say to me when Amarin came in, and how things started, that we'd even be talking about a final of Europa League, I would say absolutely not. We are the worst team in Europe. Our form's awful. We're going nowhere. So I mean, even even that's even the conversation, and and it's looking pretty good at the minute, with the result against Atletico. It feels like a massive bonus, and it feels really positive because it was, didn't look to be remotely on the cards a few months ago. So yeah, look, I mean, whoever we get, I will enjoy being in the final. Yes, the extra caveat too, of course, is that, well, less likely to lose to Bodo Glimt, but if you did lose to Bodo Glimt, you could, well, I'm not saying you could stomach it any better, but certainly I don't know too many Bodo Glimt fans that are going to give me any grief about it. But Spurs fans, plenty of them, so I think there's that too. But yeah, it's all good.
So if it is a Spurs United final, is your father-in-law feeling confident about
I would say no.
it?
I would say no. He's not. He's a Spurs fan, but he's a Spurs fan that is fairly realistic. In fairness to him, No, I don't think he would be. I don't think he would be. I think he would probably put United as favourites. In the hope, of course, that Spurs would win. But I think he would put United as favourites, to be fair.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that he's worried about playing United in the final.
No, I think he would be. I think he would be.
So just to finish, I'm gonna do the player ratings from last night. Gonna be a few eights here. So Onana, I give him a 7 because he made a good save at 0-0. Lenny Yarrow, oh, fantastic again. This guy plays like he's 26.
He's
He's still
brilliant, doesn't he? Like
he's still only
he,
19.
he's
You
like
can
the Lamine Yamal of defenders. You know what I mean? Looks full beyond his years. He definitely does.
yeah, still loving that block on the ground against Leon where he kind of he lost his footing and one of their players went for a shot on goal and he jumped forward using his head to block it. And, like putting himself in danger there to block the shot. Yeah, I love that. That was kind of like
Oh, it's brilliant.
something you would see from people would say Phil Jones, but also John Terry would throw
Yeah,
himself at a ball like that.
that's true.
Um, so I would give him an 8. I would just he's just taken to the Premier League and in Europe he's been really good as well. He's taken
No, he's
to
top class.
like a duck to
He's
water.
brilliant.
You can
He
see
really is
why
brilliant.
Real Madrid were interested in him last summer.
100%. Yeah. Honestly, the more I see him, the more I think it's a real coup that we managed to entice him to come to Man United because he definitely had arguably some better options, at least at that point in time. He's a class act. We need to keep him around.
Yeah,
100%.
and obviously it's Rio Ferdinand who is being credited with persuading them to come to United. So there you go.
Good man, Rio. Good man, Rio.
Um, Harry Maguire, another 8. I mean, now we've seen Harry Maguire the defender, Harry Maguire the striker, now Harry Maguire the winger. What's next? Is he going to play in goal in the second leg?
Well, do you know what? Most people would say maybe he should.
No. Uh, Bruno Fernandes is another player, by the way. If he was playing in goal, he'd be United's most creative player. That's how good he is.
I know. I know. He really would be. Yeah, who was the owner? Guy was it Vincent Tan, the Cardiff City owner, that got angry with the goalkeeper not getting enough goals during the season. Well,
Yeah,
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 he,
yeah.
he could get Bruno Fernandes in nets, and he might get a couple of goals, and then he'd be happy enough.
That's right. I forgot about that. That was funny. Victor Lindelof gets a 6. He had a few ropey moments, but I'll mark him up for that goal line clearance that just hit him really. Because his initial clearance fell straight to the Bilbao player, and then the second effort just hits him on the leg, it didn't go in. He stopped the ball going in, so you have to give him some kind of credit for that, whether it was accidental or not.
You'd be giving points to the goalpost next guy.
So a 6, which is a low score for a team who played so well last night. And Mizrahi rattled the crossbar. And had another solid game up against Nico Williams, which is no mean feat. Um, I think Nico Williams was determined to get running at Lindelof, and I think he fancied it. But I seen that Mizrahi was getting wise to that and was doubling up, to help him out.
They
So I'll
do
give
so
him
well anymore.
he's always a 7 out of 10 Mizrahi. Probably the best United signing last summer and the
He's been
cheapest,
brilliant.
which is
Yeah,
often the way. Yeah.
yeah. It is. You're right. You're absolutely right. Yep. No ego, no fanfare, just hard work, effort, ability. Yep, brilliant. I agree. I'm a big Maguire fan.
So Ugarte was quite sloppy earlier on, but he turned it around and got 2 assists. So I'll give him a 7. Casemiro, arguably now his best player on the night. He didn't when Ugarte was playing badly. Casemiro was having to do the job of two men, and he did it well. Scoring again, nearly scoring another goal. He's always a threat from set pieces. Very, very good in the air, Casemiro. Um, so an 8 out of 10 for him. Patrick Patrick Dorgu was another man who looked very, very nervous at the beginning of the football game and was making mistakes. So I give him a 6. The manager has said that he is now at his limit, you know, physically, and he needs a rest now as well. I think ahead of the game, he was only doing individual training, Dorgu. So that's how many minutes he's played, and in bad how bad he needs a rest. Because even in the league games against Wolves and Bournemouth, because they're dead rubbers, he's been playing in those as well. So I think now is the right time to leave him out.
Yeah.
So 6 for him. Bruno Fernandes, another 8. Yeah, just showed his class again. Captain, fantastic. He's just everywhere. You know, defensively, offensively, creating, scoring. You know, just it's just the Brand Robson of this era. And the reason why I make that comparison is because he was seen as a genuine world class midfielder playing for a United team that wasn't getting anywhere near winning the league, but were winning cups, the FA Cup, the Cup Winners' Cup, the and so on before eventually winning the league at the end of his career. So Bruno is a bit like that, and that he's playing in an average United team that's winning cups, and that's exactly what Brian Robson's career as captain was like. So
Yeah.
that's why I make that comparison.
Yeah, no,
And
no,
if you're
I get it.
and if you're being negative about it, you'll say both of them have wasted their careers at Old Trafford. You
Yeah,
know,
no,
they
no.
could have been playing
I
for
mean,
Real Madrid or Bayern Munich.
I know. Yeah, yeah, I know. But at the same time, grateful that they are staying United. I mean, I
Yeah,
think I guess the difference is that we still live in hope that Fernandez won't have wasted his career and that he will actually be part of something in the next few years that actually will do something. But we'll see.
yeah. I hope just like Brian Robson, when he's in his 30s, he picks up a Premier League medal.
Yeah,
What's happened in 93 and 94. Brian was there for those occasions. Um, yeah, I noticed recently that United they've just started marketing the 1991 European Cup Winners' Cup shirt from when United beat Barcelona 2-1 in Rotterdam in the Cup Winners' Cup final. And I think it would have been Fergie's second trophy. And Mark Hughes scored twice in that final, and Ronald Koeman scored the consolation for Barcelona. Um, M- United, Manu and Martinez and Fernandez were part of the photo shoot in they also selling the training kit from 91 as well, and the white shirt from the final. But Brian Robson, of course, he's an employee at United. He has been for a very long time. He was part of the photo shoot back in the white shirt again. But interestingly enough, a man that I haven't seen don the United shirt for most of my lifetime, Mark Hughes, came along for the photo
mm,
shoot, putting back on his white shirt from '91. Because
yeah,
I remember when I first started getting into football, Mark Hughes was playing for Chelsea, and then shortly
mm,
after that, he became the Wales manager, and then
yeah,
Blackburn, and then obviously Man City manager as well, and Fulham. So
yeah,
I've only really known him as like a veteran player at Chelsea, and then a manager. I obviously have heard about him playing for United in the 80s and the 90s. But so seeing him back in the United shirt again was very strange,
same
But
mod, yeah. No,
yeah,
I obviously I'm a wee bit older than you, Kyle. I do remember him, obviously at United. And funny enough, he was actually a few people that I grew up with when we were kids. I can't remember what year he left United. But there was a couple of people I knew he was their favorite player. For a few years in the sort of when we won the early Premier Leagues. So there's a couple of people I know would have said Mark Hughes was their Sparky was their favorite player. So yeah, no, I do remember, but you're right. A few years later, that he moved on. That was it. But no, just an age
yeah,
thing.
he
But
was part of that 1995 clear out where Kanchelskis, Paul Ince, and Mark Hughes were all ditched by Fergie in
yeah,
favour of the class of '92, and
you're right.
Alan Hansen delivered his famous line, and then went
Yeah,
on to win the League
yeah,
and Cup double.
yeah,
Um,
you're right.
because people, I think United fans even at the time were bemused that they're one of their best midfielders, one of their best wingers, and they're a guy who'd been their centre forward for such a long time that all of them were just dumped like that
Yeah,
in one
it was a bit.
summer.
It seemed like a huge risk, but I mean, fair play to Ferguson. He clearly, yeah, he obviously knew what he was doing. But it didn't look at the time. Yeah, I was a massive Kanchelskis fan. I loved Andre Kanchelskis. I was gutted when he left. I was, yeah, like you said, I was shocked that he was brilliant for United. And that was the thing too, was and Ferguson I suppose has done that over the years where, sometimes he sees a decline in somebody that no one else has seen. Certainly, match going fans or fans aren't seeing. Maybe he sees something in training. He's done that a few times over the years where it looks like he's getting rid of a player at their peak. And probably sometimes he's got it wrong and he has got rid of people at their peak. But I remember at that time thinking that, Hughes and Gonçalves were outstanding, and I was I was going. It seems unusual, but yeah, he knew what he
Yeah,
was
and
doing, obviously.
Paul Ince as well.
And then yeah, Ince as well. You're right. Yeah, absolutely. Ince was brilliant too. Yeah, for sure.
In the early days, him and Keane were the partnership in the center of the park, and then all of a sudden he was
Yeah.
gone. You know,
And Ince was another great player. I think there was talk that there was some personal stuff between him and Ferguson maybe going on, that it wasn't all just football. There was some maybe personal disagreement. I think he
yeah,
called him something or other.
big time Charlie.
Big Time Charlie, that's the one. So I think that maybe part of that was part of Ince, because Ince probably was. Well, he definitely was. He was still brilliant. I think he went on to have a
And his other
decent
nickname
career.
was the Governor.
The governor, that's true. Yeah. Kyle, I'm really gonna show me is. I remember back in the days whenever him and Ryan Giggs used to have their wee double celebration when they scored a goal, and stuff. Yeah, I remember well. But yeah, I loved Kanchelskis. Obviously, because I just always loved wingers and stuff, and I thought he was
Yeah,
great. I was gutted when he went. There really was. But yeah, like I say, Ferguson knew what he was doing.
in the
He knew
first
what he was
game
doing.
of the new season at Villa Park, when United famously lost 3-1, I think Beckham got the consolation. United were in the grey shirts, and that's when Alan Hallson was on Match of the Day that night. When he delivered his famous line, and probably all United fans were thinking the same thing. What the hell was
Oh,
he
that's
doing? You know?
that's it exactly. I mean, he came back to haunt Hansen, like, but to be honest, he was everybody agreed with him on the day. There was nobody who was saying, "Oh, that's a stupid thing to say." I mean, everybody in their wife agreed. But yeah, thankfully Ferguson had the last laugh, and
Yeah. See,
the young lads had the last laugh.
managers see things that we don't see, and another example of that was against Leon. Me and other United fans were screaming for Casemiro to be substituted. This guy's off the pace. Um, Leon will run rings around him. He ended up setting up or assisting the final three goals against Leon. You know, so most fans would have said he's too old now, get him off, replace him with a younger player. This game is
Yeah,
passing him by. But the manager thought he was the right man to keep him on to win
yeah.
us the game, and that's what happened. So they see things that we don't see.
Yeah, and you would hope to do. Otherwise,
Yeah, yeah,
otherwise we could be doing the job. So
yeah.
exactly, yeah. That's why you and I watch it on TV and in the pub, and in the stands, and that's why those guys are in the dugout, because yeah, they know what they're doing, and they know what they should do.
So Rasmus Højlund, I give him a 7. Probably one of his best games under Amorim, and of course he's the one that caused the penalty and the sending off, which really changed the tie completely.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so fair play to him. He got his goal against Bournemouth, which was an instinctive prod from that initial Ugarte effort, which was good. Um, but I would like to see him get a goal in this Europa League campaign. You know, we might become the first team in history to win a European competition without a goal from a striker in the whole of the knockout stages.
yeah. That's crazy. That's just crazy. Yeah, nuts.
uh, so Amorim, this is probably be the highest score that I will give. I know he had big results against City, and he got draws against Liverpool, and that should have been a win, and a draw against Arsenal, and being big performances in the Europa League, including the comeback against Lyon. But I'm going to give him a 9 because a 3-0 victory away from home against Bilbao ex far and away exceeded all expectations.
Yeah,
So he picked the team, and he had other options. That was the team that he went with. Because as I said, 5 players come off the bench that are capable of starting for United. But that was the team he went with, and they went out there and delivered the result. And I thought the subs, he probably didn't expect to have the luxury of being able to bring starting to bring players off to rest them and bring players on and
yeah,
give them minutes.
yeah.
Had that
Exactly.
luxury in an away game against Bilbao was quite incredible.
No,
So 9 out of
no.
10 for the manager.
Yeah. No, won't argue any of those, Kyle. Won't argue any of those at all. And the manager, I agree. Yeah, like we were saying earlier, or like I was saying, get if looks like we're going to get to the final, and if we do that, that has exceeded expectations for this season. And you know, and that's it. It's about seeing if there's progress, and that's what we always say. You know things are bad, and you know they can't be turned around overnight, but you just want to see little signs of progress, and that and those other results you talked about were signs that there was something that we could do, but things were just so generally poor. It was hard to see much light, but yeah. The last night's result was incredible, and it looks now like we're going to get the final, and whoever we get, we've got at least got a decent chance of winning. We're not going to go to the final and feel like, oh, we're really up against it. Either team, we're going to at least half fancy it. And that's credit to Amarim that he's managed, despite how bad it's been, he's somehow managed to get us there. So yeah, all credit to him for fair play.
Yeah, for most clubs, winning FA Cups, League Cups, and Europa Leagues, that is their best era. For United are winning these trophies when we're awful. That's how big we are. And
It's true, totally true. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I mean that's the thing. You look since Ferguson retired, you're the man who always has the stats. You know better than me, Kyle. But we've won more trophies in the worst era that we've had in 50 odd years than the likes of Spurs and other clubs who allegedly are in decent form or no worse than
yeah,
normal form in
yeah,
their club's history, and we've actually won more when we feel like we're terrible.
yeah. Arsenal are considered one of the best teams in the Premier League under Arteta. I think now they're going to finish second 3 seasons in a row. United, since since Arteta took charge of Arsenal, United won more trophies.
You go. I mean that's incredible, but true, and it just shows you as well how people are so influenced by negative conversation. And Man United just as as was it Martin Samuel? He always said you never a journalist will never go broke writing about Manchester United. Everybody wants to talk about Man United, and whenever the things are bad, people can't wait to put the boot in and make it feel like they're worse than they've ever been. But actually, the statistics don't necessarily bear that out. And like you said, people love to talk up other clubs and how wonderful they're playing, how great they're doing, and the manager's great and the players are great, and it's all working and it's all just clicking. And United are awful, but actually, yeah, technically, we've actually been no worse than some of these allegedly unbelievable teams. Ironically,
Yes, since Fergie retired, we've won 2 League Cups, two FA Cups, and we're on the getting close to a second Europa League
yeah,
title. For 99% of clubs, if they won those trophies in that period of time, that would be considered a golden era.
exactly. That no, that is 100% right. That is exactly it. That is exactly it. And that's again, that's another good thing for United is that the trophy cabinet keeps getting replenished even in this barren spell, as we would term it, this awful era. You're still racking up the trophies, and then you kind of go, well, when things finally do click and we start to get closer to those bigger things. I mean, you even say in the barren era, it wasn't all bad, still just moving along, another trophy, another trophy, another trophy. Yeah, so yeah, it's definitely not as bad as what people like to say that it is. People love to say how bad it is for obvious reasons because everybody loves to hate United. Um, and it's hard when you hear that all the time to not feel like that, even as a United fan yourself. But actually, yeah, take a step back, like you just laid out really well there. It's not as bad as sometimes it may seem. Overall.
Yeah, you know, our Banta eras are better than most clubs' glorious eras, you
Yeah,
know,
true,
in terms of
true.
trophies.
We should be grateful. We should be grateful in some ways.
Yeah, and that's hopefully we get another trophy on the board and get Almerim off their flyer by winning a trophy in his first half season.
Yeah,
Uh, and hopefully he's the man that brings us back to the real trophies, that being the Premier League and the Champions League. Because
yeah,
we don't like to talk about it, but Liverpool have now equaled it at 20 each now in terms of league titles, and Liverpool have 6 European Cups to our 3. So we want to be winning those trophies again very, very soon if we can.
I agree. Couldn't agree with you more. Couldn't agree with you more.
All right. Um, Please everybody, if you watch on YouTube, smash a like on that video and get your comments in. if you're watching on YouTube or if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, and to get the word out there to as many United fans as possible and let them know about this podcast, especially here in Ireland. And I'm sure there's so many United fans in the country, and most of them probably don't know about us. So if you like the podcast, get the word out there and let people know and get more United fans joining us. And even we would welcome more United fans actually participating in the podcast as well, not just listening and commenting. I'm always open to having new people on the show. But Chris, it's been a pleasure as always.
Always, Kyle. Always enjoyed it as always, mate. Thanks very much for having me on. Yep. Look forward to the next one.
All right, see you later.
Cheers.